Shemai. Today I'm once again down on the ground close to what I want to look at, and I'm underneath my children's climbing frame because I wanted to have a look at this lovely little plant here, which is ground ivy. It's Glechoma hederacea, or in Welsh either or also it's known as Yorwg Llesg. And it's a really common plant. It's found in woodlands and hedgerows and grasslands, but I'm sort of taking advantage of this being underneath the climbing frame. And it's a creeping, rooting sort of hairy perennial, and it's evergreen, but obviously this time of year it comes into flower and it looks rather lovely actually. Now, what I find is at the moment in this light, it looks quite green, but it's quite noticeable across the lawn. Because it has like this purpley tinge to it, and it creates, as you can see here, it's been allowed to grow, but on the lawn itself, almost like a mat. It covers the ground and it creeps along. So we're going to have a little closer look at this.
This really is the best time to go out and see ground ivy because it flowers between March and June, and it produces these beautiful pale violet flowers that are usually in pairs or threes. You can see here in pairs, and they're about 15 to 20 millimeters long. And on the lower lip, now it might be very difficult for you to see there, but on the lower lip down by there, they've got purple spots, and these lips are sort of split into two or divided into three. I'm not sure you can see it well enough there, but it's one of the benefits of sort of trying to identify it so you can go out and see it for yourself. Now the leaves have this sort of, you can see there, they've got like a rounded sort of look to them, and almost like kidney shape. They're about 35 to 40 millimeters across, and they have this blunt toothed margin, so sort of a very blunt serration around the edge, and they grow usually in opposite, so up like that. Now the stem is interesting because the stem, and it helps to identify, is square. So when I feel the stem there, I'm not going to break it off, but when I feel it, you can feel that it is actually square. And if I cut through it and held it up, you'd see that it was like a square cross section through it, and it really does help to identify it as ground ivy. Now, the name ground ivy is, it probably comes from the fact that it has this creeping habit and it will spread across the floor, because it's not actually related to ivy at all, even though the sort of ivy part of it, the hederacea, is included in the Latin name. Now, a good way of identifying this, because there are similar species in the grass, like bugle, is that, and actually under here it's quite strong, it has this sort of, a little bit of an unpleasant smell, and it smells a little bit like black currant, or some people even say it smells a little bit like cat weed. But like I say, as unpleasant as that may be, it is a good way of identifying ground ivy. Now these leaves, these can actually be eaten. They are edible and they're added to salads. And in the old days, they were used to clarify or clear beer and improve its flavour. And another name for it is ale hoof, because obviously that link to beer. And the young shoots can actually be cooked as a type of spinach. But like I say, anything that we talk about being edible, you have to absolutely 100% know what you're identifying. And I wouldn't encourage anybody to go and eat things unless you absolutely knew what you were doing. Also, in the old days, it had medicinal uses, and it was used for a loss of appetite. So people would give it to you if you had lost your appetite and you weren't hungry. They would give it as a sort of to help fix diarrhea. They'd also use it for coughs, and it was also believed to have blood cleaning properties. But it is a rich source of vitamin C, so you can see why people may have thought that it had some goodness to it.
So there we go. Ground ivy, like I say, it's a really common one, easy to find. It can be confused with a few other things that might be growing in your lawns at this time of year, like bugle, but it's well worth going and having a look. It is lovely, and now's the time to see it whilst it's in flower. So there we go, ground ivy. Go out and see if you can find it, and good luck.